What would be one scientific discovery that would greatly disappoint you? Story 1. If a recent food additive turned out to be deadly in small quantities, but that its symptoms don't manifest until after 10 to 20 years of ingestion, which is why it passed all the initial safety tests. The human body completely replaces its cell structure every 7 years. Won't happen for the same reason you have an exponentially decreasing risk of cancer if you quit smoking now. Neurotoxins are one likely culprit, as the buildup in the brain could cause a sudden stroke or debilitating state, and neuroscience is still in its infancy. I'm pretty sure complex factors affecting brain function aren't on the list of FDA approval forms. Story 2. We humans are the most technologically advanced life forms in the galaxy. That's why we haven't been visited by aliens, because they're all eating mud and banging sticks into their heads. That raises a lot of morality questions. Do we share the benefits of our technology, assuming it is useful to them, and raise an entire species out of the dark, or stone, or bronze, or whatever age? Do we allow them to develop by themselves, potentially taking paths we disagree with slavery, genocide, and wasting billions of lives, which are just as valuable as our own, but preserving the culture of an entire species and allowing them to make discoveries which humanity might never have made? Then there is the problem of spoiled little species. Would they appreciate the destructive power of nuclear weapons if they never experienced them firsthand? What if they are more aggressive than us, or are terrible at planning ahead? Can we justify giving them explosives or machinery? Actually, is there a subreddit where I can ask that? Story 3. That we are indeed just a simulation in a computer somewhere. We know this because the admin message just popped up saying they're shutting us down. No, you know what would be worse? If this was a video game style environment, God was a player and we were NPCs. Think about how you treat NPCs in Gmod, for example. In Gmod, you end them, burn them, blow them up, slice them in half, run them over. Why? Because you know they are not sentient. You know they aren't human. You notice their patterns, what they do in a given situation. They run from a grenade, they shoot at enemy NPCs, they fail about when they are on fire. Everything they say is pre-recorded. You feel nothing when they die. Now imagine if there was a God, and he saw us in the same way we see video games. He would end us and feel nothing. Story 4. That we're all alone in the universe. The way I see it is this. Before us, there was an Earth populated with a race of dinosaurs and other prehistoric creatures. Later on, after lots of crazy environmental changes, a lot of death, and some evolutionary madness, there began to exist the species that currently inhabit the planet. If our one tiny, insignificant planet could already have played home to, at the very least, two wildly different populations of beings, how can there not be other life in the universe? Story 5. It would be disappointing if it turned out that I was the only person to truly exist and everyone else is just an illusion. Dear sir, poor sir, brave sir, you are an experiment by the creator of the universe. You are the only creature in the entire universe who has free will. You are the only one who has to figure out what to do next and why. Everybody else is a robot, a machine. Some people seem to like you and others seem to hate you, and you must wonder why. They are simply liking machines and hating machines. You are pooped and demoralized. Why wouldn't you be? Of course it's exhausting, having to reason every time in a universe which wasn't meant to be reasonable. You are surrounded by loving machines, hating machines, greedy machines, unselfish machines, brave machines, cowardly machines, truthful machines, lying machines, funny machines, solemn machines. Their only purpose is to stir you up in every conceivable way so the creator of the universe can watch your reactions. They can no more feel or reason than grandfather clocks. Story 6. That time travel is possible, but so unpredictable and dangerous that it won't be used. Theoretically, if there are an infinite amount of universes, you wouldn't transport into a future version of this exact universe. You could transport into another universe where you were meant to transport at that very moment. Anything you affect would have been supposed to have been affected by you, therefore you are changing nothing. The universe you left would be a universe where you were supposed to leave in a time machine and never return. In the universe that no time machines exist would still exist, and you would never visit that one. Story 7. If there's no possible way to surpass the speed of light, that would essentially crush any possible hope of traversing this galaxy, nonetheless leaving this one to explore others. Sorry to confuse so many, but in my no possible way, I meant to include that there would be no wormholes, bending space, etc., etc. And yes, nonetheless was used wrong in this instance. Although it would be very disappointing, it wouldn't crush all hopes exploring our galaxy. It would just make it orders of magnitude more difficult. Remember that relativity means that time passes more slowly on a fast spaceship. So let's imagine you were going to the closest star system, Alpha Centauri, AC, at 99 of the speed of light. AC is 4.2 light years away, so naively, you'd think it takes 4.2 years to get there. But wait, that's only true from the perspective of Earthlings. From your perspective on the spaceship, you have a time dilation factor of 7.1, so the trip only takes zero point 0.6 years or 7 months. Obviously, this is very difficult and expensive, but it wouldn't be impossible to send living people to another galaxy, just very difficult. And those civilizations would effectively be insulated by the time it takes to communicate. If you wanted to send an SMS from Alpha Centauri to Earth, it would take 4.2 years to get there. Story 8, that there was nothing else we could do. No space travel, no time travel, no more pioneers scientifically or geographically. That every mistake we have made with our planet is ours to own, and that with it we shall perish. To be honest, there's nothing more worrisome to me than the idea that nothing in my lifetime could be as revolutionary as the New World or any other great discovery of the last few thousand years. Story 9. Honestly, if humans found a cure for death, as scary as dying is, it's a part of life that shouldn't be tampered with. I was with my grandpa when he died in the hospital, and even though at first he was scared, and there was a calming sense of peace within him in his last minutes of living. He told me he wasn't afraid anymore. I don't know. To be honest, even through all the difficulties and societal changes we would have to undergo, I think that one day people are going to look back and cry when they learn that people on old Earth ever had to say goodbye to the people they loved. That we ever had to live with the specter of death by senescence or accident as a certainty will be horrifying. Frankly, as long as I'm healthy, there will always be something to interest me, and I couldn't imagine being at the point where I would honestly like to stop for no other reason than being bored. Story 10, that they discover life on another planet, but it turns out to be like butterflies or something. It's pretty much guaranteed to be simple life forms. Look at how tiny humanity's footprint is on the grand history of Earth. The odds of us finding a planet at the same state or further along the evolutionary path are slim. Of course, our path was drastically altered when the dinosaur extinction happened. Would be interesting to see where we would be today if they weren't wiped out. Some other planets might have mass extinction events fairly often that keeps resetting their progress too. Story 11. What would disappoint me? If we found out the answer to everything. I think any scientific discovery is exciting, especially if it isn't the result you were expecting. Science is driven by asking how something works. If we discover how everything works, then there won't be a need for science anymore. We know just about everything about Newtonian physics, and that's just one field. All of the research is going into new fields. Imagine if we solved everything. I worked in a chemical lab as an undergraduate, and my friends worked in the bio lab below my lab. Between us, we found more things that went wrong that went right. But that meant we opened the doors to additional research. It was like opening up one door and finding another two in front of it. Story 12. The cure to death and the beginning of everlasting life. Of course, the politicians and all the super rich people would get first dibs at it. Then someone would leak it and it would spread like wildfire across the globe. Imagine a world where nobody died but everyone kept reproducing. Imagine living forever in a starved world where nothing is possible and you have no reason to make life-changing dreams or try to experience all these once-in-a-lifetime moments. I hate that everyone is so scared to die. I'm not. It's part of the journey. Story 13. I'd say discovering that we're alone in the universe, but that is an absolutely impossible conclusion to come to. Not just unlikely, it is impossible. We can't even decide if we're alone in our own solar system. I would be disappointed if we discovered that the sun has way less time than we currently estimate, around 5 billion years. Like, say, 10 million years. The sun is absolutely the most important thing we have. More important than our oceans, atmosphere, and even the Earth itself. When I hear impossible, I think of logically impossible. So, based on that, I wouldn't say it's impossible. As for the sun, 10 million years is still a long time. Hopefully, by then, we'd either have found a way to extend the life of the sun or found a new star to call our sun. Story 14. One scientific discovery that would greatly disappoint me would be that all matter and thought, and vice versa, are ultimately discovered to be interconnected, revealing reality to be the dreaming mind of an eternal mechanism. And for this to be discovered meant shattering boundaries of reality that held it together, thus throwing reality into a rapidly accelerating turbulence as things of all shapes, waves, and forms try to blast shortcuts into the amazing convolution that is time and space to mesh together and form a singularity. I'd also be very disappointed to find out that all miracles, including the most bizarre miracles of the Bible, turned out to be proven fact instead of imagination. Story 15. That there is one single soulmate for everyone, but there was no way to ever find out if your partner was that one until one of you died. If you marry the wrong person, then you have basically wasted your entire life with the wrong person. Your soulmate will never find you, and the married wife or husband will never find theirs. It's a horrifying nightmare. Is every relationship you've had prior to your soulmate cheating? If your soulmate dies, you have no one else that you can be with without robbing them of a relationship with their soulmate. What if you hate your soulmate, or you fall in love with someone else's soulmate? This is why I hate soulmates. Drives me mad. Story 16. It's the year 2024. Humanity has torn itself apart trying to find space for the 20 billion people that now inhabit this tiny rock. Scientists have hit a wall where progress needs to become more infinitesimal or greater than our Earth can provide. We are at a technological and societal breaking point. Then one day, a crack appears on every cell phone and tablet and Google Glasses device. Slowly, the crack grows and opens a window into a parallel universe. But it's a universe where everything is magenta. And that's the only difference. It drives most of humanity insane, causing great mass endings and much kerfuffle. Story 17. That would be highly unlikely that all life looked relatively human. In fact, it's almost as self-centered as believing that the sun rotated around the earth, just even more selfish and narrow-minded. Human life is only one branch of a huge evolution tree that produces millions of other types of beings and branches of life, some of which went nowhere. We could become extinct in one instance, and life would never find the exact same way to replicate itself, so don't worry, you will never be disappointed. Story 18. That life, as we know it, is nothing more than the burning sparks that fly off the flint of my lighter when I try to light it. That our existence is really amongst a lot of very similar existences, sparks, all originating at the same source. And that source is completely unaware of our existence, much like we are unaware of what is happening within a flame or an explosion. To us, it is brief, but it is said, life is but a vapor. As many have said, I wouldn't want to know that it really is all for naught, that this life means absolutely nothing in the end. Story 19. Say we locate a planet perfectly suitable for developing life. Say that people speculate that there's already life there. Say most of the population on Earth is thrilled at the prospect that we aren't alone in the universe. Say the nations of the world pool together money, time, and other resources to build a ship or probe, to travel to that planet, to reach out. Say the journey takes years, decades, centuries, and when we got there, there would only be plants and germs. And by the time an intelligent species began to propagate there, we would be long gone. Story 20. I'd have to say that our entire universe is simply an atom that makes up part of a single molecule of another life form. Let's say you look at your fingernail, and inside the atoms that make up that fingernail are trillions of other universes, and within those, a life form, assuming humanoid, looks at its fingernail, and it's made up of trillions of universe, just the same, and so the cycle continues forever. A Horton hears a whole idea, but on a much grander scale, also that there is but one intelligent life form per universe, and we will never be able to contact the others. Story 21. As a physicist, this Higgs we found being the Higgs, exactly as predicted by the Standard Model, the main theory in modern particle physics, would be crushing. We've spent some moment the last 50 or so years trying to disprove the SM. So far, it's passed every test, except one, which wasn't really unexpected, with flying colors. The Higgs was the only piece missing. Now that we have it, if it's the SM, we're out of leads. We would have nothing else to go on, and with supersymmetry thus far having not shown up, it would imply that there's not really much else in the way of new physics out there until the grand unification scale, which is very, very far from anything we'll reasonably ever be able to test. Story 22. That discovery, for me, has already been made. There may indeed be other intelligent beings in the universe somewhere, but the distances between their world and our own is so unfathomably great that we would never be able to have any sort of meaningful exchange of information with them, beyond simply being aware of their existence. This assumes the impossibility of super sea speeds. Even if a sentient world were discovered 50 light years away, a walk across a small room in cosmic terms, and we sent them a greeting, we would all be dead by the time a reply would arrive. So, chances are, I will never witness any such event. That disappoints the crap out of me. Story 23. To me, the idea is that the whole point of evolution is to evolve into a perfect consciousness that exists beyond space time, even beyond the quantum level, one that has mastered field interaction and becomes a force of creation for the sake of creation. And this consciousness is then, even in this most subtle yet powerful state, responsible for all interaction of energies, fields, particles, waves. Its only goal is stimulation and development of itself, which would seem to lead to the idea that all existence is in a constant state of death and renewal in order to satisfy the needs of this being, which would mean that all possibilities of our lives happens in some universe at some time. Some might say that a consciousness isn't needed for existence, which is true, but if we don't fully understand the extent of the evolution of conscious thought, and we know the observation alone can affect our universe, then, although the possibilities are microscopic, if it happens once in just that plane of existence, then it wouldn't matter if you are religious. All contingencies not only are planned for, but they happen in some incarnation of our universe. Like a biological matrix where you are plugged into an infinite number of matrices, and choice is an illusion as you live out all possibilities, and the stimulation to all processes involved in existence feed the machine, so to speak. Story 24. Time travel. I don't mean the type with creating differences in relative experience of time, like we believe is caused by gravity or going really fast, but Back to the Future style, where anyone can go to any point in time as they please. I specifically dislike this because of the possible implications. It could imply that all actions at every point in time, from the dawn of time to the end of days, so to speak, are already predetermined. This being the case would indisputably erase all possibility of free will. How lost would we be with the knowledge that we never make a conscious decision? Furthermore, it's frightening to think that our knowledge of this lack of free will would have been predetermined as well. Think along the lines of a god of chaos. There are an infinite number of parallel universes. This is similar to the previous implication, in that our choices don't actually matter in the end, because in some parallel universe we made the opposite choice. This would also imply that the creation of a universe is a simple thing, as theoretically there would be an infinite. Not really sure if infinite is the right term, but hopefully you understand. Number of universes created at every single instant of universal time. Think about how insignificant we are when considering the size of the universe. Then think about how insignificantly small our single universe would be when considering an infinite number of universes. Mind-boggling. Personally, I find this possibility unlikely, but I'll share it anyways. Time travel is possible, and it is possible to change the past. Have you watched The Butterfly Effect? How about a sound of thunder? The idea that a single person can change the fate of another person, a city, a country, the human race, like potentially even the universe as a whole, would also completely destroy any sense we have of free will. You might argue, well, if someone changed something in the past, someone from the future would just travel slightly further back and prevent the change in the first place. What if you never got the chance? What if the very cause of the universe, as we know it, assuming the Big Bang Theory to be correct, was someone traveling back in time? Imagine, as an extreme example, that somehow a black hole was taken back in time, causing a chain reaction that led to the collapse of an existing universe. Not likely, but still mind-boggling. Story 25. Not to be the Buzz Killington in the thread, but I created a Reddit account and decided to stop lurking, just so that I could say global warming. It honestly really bothers me that a very intelligent and self-aware community like Reddit couldn't come up with the one truly terrifying, potentially wipe out all life on Earth, or at least majorly destabilize critical ecosystems thing that's gathering momentum every day. Climate change has become so politicized, and we're so desensitized to it that we totally neglect how serious and real, that is, currently present, its consequences are. We've almost succeeded in destroying the planet, and this somehow doesn't surface in a discussion of disappointing scientific discoveries. Sorry for the kind of douchey and alarmist tone, but this is my first post. And seriously? Come on, Redditors. Story 26. This one is simple, but terrifying the more you think about it. There is no sign of complex life outside Earth. Now we found life, microorganisms, and such, and even those are controversial because of contamination. But actual multicellular life? Nothing. And just think about that. Think about how big the universe is and how good our telescopes are now. And we still found nothing, not even plant life, not even evidence of it, in any suitable atmosphere. Nothing, Zip. It's insane. I find the idea of possibly being alone in the universe terrifying. I think it's unlikely, given the sheer size of the universe, but it's pretty spooky not knowing. We could be all there is, and we're not even taking care of the only place we're safe. Story 27. The beginning of everything. Before it, there was no time, no space. There was nothing. Usually we think of nothing as a blackness, a void. But even that is something. There were no events prior. Nothing happened. For a vast amount of time which did not exist, nothing happened. Until something did happen. From that moment, everything that ever has happened and ever will happen has happened and is happening and will happen.